The average pleb needs to know that you're up against everybody now. You're up against Saylor, you're up against the US trying to create their SBR. You're up against Bitcoin bonds, you're up against Bit bonds, you're up against pretty much everybody. And you're fighting for sats against nation states because they're already buying and mining it. And now it's just going to accelerate and it's going to drive up demand massively. So that's the thing you have to know. That's the biggest takeaway. You have to stack like there's no tomorrow.
Hey, crypto fam, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, drop your comments below, and hit that subscribe button for more crypto updates. Now let's get into it. As of today, the crypto market is experiencing some seriously exciting shifts, and the spotlight is on Bitcoin. After a brief drop to $75,000, Bitcoin is making waves and positioning itself for what could be the biggest parabolic move we've ever seen. And we've got some key reasons why. First, let's talk about the recent Trump tariff saga. At the beginning of the tariff issues, Bitcoin took a hit, dropping to the $75,000 mark as market uncertainty spooked investors. But here's the twist. Trump's decision to hold tariffs for another 90 days has had a positive ripple effect on the stock market, and crypto is catching that wave. With the stock market recovering favorably, it's only a matter of time before Bitcoin and the entire crypto market follows suit, benefiting from this positive shift. Consequently, states like Oklahoma are considering Bitcoin for their strategic reserves, signaling growing governmental confidence in digital assets. Simultaneously, Bitcoin ETFs have seen consistent inflows, reflecting robust investor demand. Industry experts like Arthur Hayes anticipate potential short-term dips, but project a surge to $250,000 by year-end, especially if macroeconomic conditions prompt further monetary easing. Similarly, analysts from Standard Chartered forecast Bitcoin reaching $200,000 in 2025, driven by institutional adoption and favorable regulatory shifts. So where does Samson Moe, one of Bitcoin's most bullish voices, see the market going from here? Moe is projecting that Bitcoin is gearing up for a massive move in the coming weeks. With the broader financial landscape shifting, Moe believes that Bitcoin is about to see an influx of institutional investment and adoptions, potentially pushing the price to new heights. This April developments could very well trigger a historic rally for Bitcoin as market sentiment turns increasingly optimistic. Stay tuned till the end because we'll dive into exactly why Samson Moe is so bullish on Bitcoin. But before we do, make sure you hit like, drop a comment below, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next big update. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
Eventually people will demand to be paid in Bitcoin because their suppliers like the grocery store or department store, whatever, will want Bitcoin too. So it's just like an amplification of demand from all parts of society that want Bitcoin. So eventually you working for a company will have to ask the company, like, pay me in Bitcoin because I can't buy groceries with this paper anymore. But hyper-Bitcoinization depends on how you define it, but I define it as the point at which you no longer need to convert Bitcoin to fiat anymore. You can just live on a Bitcoin standard and earn sats and spend sats. But I believe it's coming faster than most people would expect because these types of changes in money, in the base money that everyone uses, are very quick changes. It's not a slow, gradual progression where, in 2 years, maybe we'll be at 20%. And then another 2 years, we'll be at 40%. It's quite exponential because when most people stop wanting the fiat, then everyone stops wanting the fiat because it's like a race against time to get rid of the fiat and get into something harder, which is Bitcoin.
Will we see in, 20 years, 30, 50 years, when we look back, do you think we will look at this time period as the next Bretton Woods? I'll kind of clarify, like, obviously we had Bretton Woods, the first one, and they call the second one, right, 1971. And then I know some people call 2022, when we froze Russia, they call that Bretton Woods 3. Will we look at this time period right now as the next Bretton Woods? Is that what we're going to see? Is it going to be obvious, a couple decades from now when we look back?
Possibly, but I think it's probably bigger than something like Bretton Woods. I would say we'll look back at the period up till 1971 as the monetary dark ages, this period of time in which nothing really made sense. Because if you think about it, when we went off the gold standard, all of a sudden, this paper that was designed to represent gold, it's a IOU for gold, suddenly was disconnected. And you could now take this paper, and whoever can print the paper can make more of it to buy back that asset that was supposed to be represented by that paper. So it's like bizarro world. Nothing really makes sense anymore because you have a relatively finite hard asset in gold, and you have, a representation of that asset in terms of paper or digital paper, whatever you want to call that. And now this can buy all of this. So, if you really think about it and you sleep on it and you mull it over, it's like wacko that suddenly this valuable thing can be bought by this worthless thing. And this is sort of the conclusion of that experiment. And I think we'll look back and in 50 or 60 years, historians will look back and say, wow, I can't believe we were so primitive that we were led to believe that, this piece of paper had value. And that's sort of the realization that they'll look at it. Not, it's like Bretton Woods type, we agreed to do something, but it's just, we were all insane for decades using paper.
Money. It's been around for thousands of years, evolving with human civilization. But how did we get here, and why is the system crumbling today? Let's unpack the history of money, how fiat currency has been manipulated, and why Bitcoin may be the only real fix. Rewind to ancient times. Before paper and coins, people traded salt, grain, and livestock, commodities with real value. Then came Mesopotamia, where silver was used as a standard, and Egypt, where gold fueled trade. These early forms laid the foundation for money, something scarce and trusted. Fast forward to the Tang Dynasty in 7th century China. Paper money enters the scene. By the modern era, governments were issuing paper backed by gold, the gold standard. This meant you couldn't print more money than the gold you had. It kept inflation in check. But in 1971, everything changed. President Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard, and the age of fiat money began, currency backed by nothing but trust. Suddenly, governments could print unlimited money, and they did, funding wars, bailouts, and debt. The result? Inflation. More money chasing the same goods leads to higher prices. We've seen it across the globe, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Argentina, where hyperinflation made cash nearly worthless. Even in the U.S., your dollar today buys far less than it did 20 years ago. This isn't by accident. It's deliberate manipulation, printing to solve short-term problems while eroding long-term value. That's what broke the money. Enter Bitcoin. Born in 2009, Bitcoin is everything fiat isn't. It's decentralized. No government can control it. It's limited. Only 21 million will ever exist. And it's transparent, secured by blockchain, not backroom deals. Bitcoin is deflationary, resistant to manipulation, and built for a future where trust in fiat is gone. As adoption grows, so does its potential to replace broken money with something sound. So, in a world where fiat has failed, could Bitcoin be the answer? Stay tuned, as Samson Mo brings more insight about why he believes Bitcoin is the future of global finance.
Bitcoin can fix all of those things, right? So the solution is so simple. And maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, it's so simple, people just don't want to acknowledge that it is that simple, that the money is broken, and that's it. Once people are interested in Bitcoin, I think it's really hard to look at anything else and think that, well, yeah, I could ignore the money and we can just talk about these other problems, because, that's like kind of where we are at. We see everything going back, every problem going back to the root cause of the money being broken. And that's all we think about. Fixing the problem it really requires a lot of conviction and a lot of thinking and a lot of action. American Hodl went on one of his tirades recently, and he said something, I don't know if he scripted it or what, but it was really, really well said. He's like, fix your shit, get your shit together, and buy your Bitcoin. And, that's not easy to do. Everyone has things that they're worried about, they need a new toaster, they need a new TV, and they've got a vacation plan somewhere. And to fix your shit and buy your Bitcoin means you have to stop some of those other extraneous things that you have planned already in your life and buy your Bitcoin. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's like telling a kid to take their medicine, right? They don't want to take the medicine. It doesn't taste good. And it's the same with coming to that realization that that oil spill is the problem, and you kind of need to fix that before you fix anything else.
I was just reading something the other day that the average person is sitting on like 130, or the average person with a 401k, I should say, a retirement plan here in America, has 130,000 on average in their 401k, and it's 50 years old. And when the plans came out, or 52 years old, I think it was 1973. How is it there's that small of an amount in there? Now, in saying that, it's a lot of Americans can't even come up with a couple $100 emergency payment and it's sad. I laugh because it's sad, and it's so unbelievable, but that's what fiat does. I can't even afford rent this month, man. Like, I don't even know what's going on. How do we, as Bitcoiners, how do we talk better, I guess? How do we become more persuasive and get that truth? It feels like, well, truth is truth, so it's going to fix itself. But how do we become better at articulating that to the average person, and then even to a Joe Rogan, so we can get that truth out there?
Most people could probably scrape together an emergency fund, but that requires, delaying gratitude in a number of areas. That cancel your Netflix subscription for a while, or cancel your Spotify for a while, or whatever. Right? There are ways around it, but everyone sort of is set in their ways, and that's the biggest problem. It's not so much that we're not reaching them. It's not so much that our message is not reaching them. I think we're just not reaching them, period. So that's why I think we have to think of better ways to do this, and more creative ways, like Bitcoin trading cards, or whatever, or even like the nation state adoption work we do. That is a lot of outreach to people that are possibly hostile to Bitcoin and very possibly unaware of Bitcoin. And on the best case, they're open to listening. But all these problems that face individuals when it's coming to terms with Bitcoin and the problems of the world, it's the same with the nation state, right? They have their problems. They have they have to deal with poverty or inflation, or they have an IMF loan or something, and there's always something on their plate. And you have to deal with elections coming up, right? There's always an election coming up or something. So everyone's just really busy, and you kind of need to pause, take a breath, and look at the whole big picture from a first principles perspective. And that's really difficult for people to do. They're just on autopilot. And I guess this is why the term NPC is out there, right? They're just, doing their thing every day, and next day reset, do it again. But, the only way to really fix the problem and understand the problem is to pause and really reflect. And that's really a big ask, apparently. There's this discussion, like, what's more important, grassroots a Bitcoin adoption, like Bitcoin Beach, Bitcoin Lake, Bitcoin Jungle. I can name all of them, but I can't right now. I won't. Yeah. But or is it nation state level engagement and seeing the government say something? And I think grassroots is very important because it's very real, and it is these people actively rebooting themselves, rebooting their minds to understand this problem and understand Bitcoin. But the nation state stuff is also very important too, because just imagine a country full of people that are on autopilot. If the government says, yeah, we're looking into Bitcoin, or we're setting up a special economic zone so people can pay in Bitcoin, or we're looking at Bitcoin policy, or we're setting up a Bitcoin strategic reserve, that is where the people on autopilot listen, right? Like, unfortunately, people still, they pay very heavy attention to the people in charge, or to wealthy people, or people of influence, or even the mainstream media to some extent. Less so now, but still, you have to go through these channels, I think, if you want to reach everybody. And this is why I think it's kind of, it's not useful that we're all, like, a lot of Bitcoiners are going to Nostr, because that's just an echo chamber. I'm just going to say it. It's an echo chamber, and you're not reaching anybody new, because it's nobody that is not already into Bitcoin going there. Very unlikely. So you kind of need to stay where the people are. And this is why I don't really go on Nostr much. I'm still mostly on X because that's where most people are. And that's where all the interesting engagement comes, when you have conflict between us and no coiners and us and, pre-coiners and us and the haters. That's where the interesting stuff comes out of. So by just going off and saying, yeah, I'm leaving this, I'm going here, it doesn't really spread the message at all. And it doesn't increase the size of the audience, and it doesn't increase our reach.
That's a wrap for today. Did this video leave you with some value? What do you think about Samson Mo's bullish stance on Bitcoin? Could we actually see Bitcoin hit $1 million by the end of 2025? It's an exciting thought, right? We'll have to wait and see. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button, and don't forget to share this with others who need to hear it. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more updates on Bitcoin and the crypto world. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.